The tragic story of MultiVersus has finally come to an unsatisfying conclusion, with Player First Games announcing that they will be shutting down this game in only a couple months at the very end of Season 5. Now, the game will still be available to play offline, but all content updates, characters, skins, levels to play on, everything will be discontinued from this point forward. And this is less than 3 years from the initial beta launch of this game. And in my mind, this is one of the biggest bag fumbles in modern gaming history, and it really comes down to Warner Bros. Now in this video, I'm going to talk about the 3 main reasons why this game failed, and also a couple of other reasons, things that didn't make much of a difference, but would have been nice to have, could have made a difference for the current player base, and maybe help this game squeak out a profit. Now, the primary problem that this game had was definitely over monetization. If we compare it to the recent release of Marvel Rivals, where you currently have access to 35 different characters without paying a single dollar to access them, we can see that the MultiVersus model of grinding and grinding to unlock fighters so that you're incentivized to actually put cold hard cash down to play as these characters, this model is completely dead. This is so old school, and no one buys into this in a free-to-play live service environment. There was a recent story that came out about League of Legends where apparently they restructured how long it takes to unlock their characters, and it takes about 6 entire years of game time to unlock every single character in League of Legends. And to me, that immediately makes it a no-go. I am not gonna play games where I have to unlock the fun. And that's pretty much where MultiVersus put itself, where if you wanted to see the most fun mechanics of this game, you had to grind, playing characters that you maybe didn't even like. Now, I was fortunate enough to have played the beta, so I had most of the cast of characters unlocked, though I had to go and unlock the full release characters like Samurai Jack, Powerpuff Girls, etc. But anyone who started this game in the full release was not so lucky. The cast of characters they could play as was extremely limited, and the grind was just nonsensical to unlock new fighters. And I gotta mention that when they first released this game, there wasn't even a way to earn them. Like the fighter road, it's a way that you get XP by playing as characters. That wasn't even there. You just had to pay money to get fighters. It's no doubt that the heavily restricted character choice drove some players away, but the clunky gameplay also affected the way that people interacted with this game. In the very beginning, back in the beta, it was too fast. Though I was a fan of the style, the fact that you could do 2 specials, 2 jumps, 2 dodges in the air, meant that you could do 6 different interactions while airborne. This gave the game a very unique feel, but it made it very noob filter. You could not play this game without understanding the mechanics. You had to spend a lot of time learning the fundamentals to even reach an acceptable skill floor. And so to combat this with the full release, Player First Games slowed it down, introduced a dodge limit, and probably worst of all, introduced a hit confirm pause, which made the game feel very stuttery. If you were used to the smooth gameplay of the beta, the full release felt so bad, it pretty much filtered me, I'll be honest. Combine that with the fact that a lot of the older characters were tuned in such a way where confirming eliminations was a lot harder. It seemed like they were trying to make the game casual friendly, but doing it the complete wrong way. And I think this is a problem that comes about when developers don't really understand how their game is played at a high level. If I compare this to something like Fortnite, early Fortnite had similar problems where the developers were not as good at building as the pro players were. And so a lot of their changes to the game were weapons that just directly countered building entirely. Stuff like miniguns and weird one-off updates where explosive damage would go through your builds, and that's exactly what I saw in the full release of MultiVersus. And then I compared to something like Marvel Rivals, where those developers understand the game at a very intimate level. Some of those developers are high-level Grandmaster, not pro-level, but they rank very highly within their own game, and that means they understand the nuances. At some point, Player First Games did bring a couple of the pros into the development team, but I think it was a little late into the process, And because of Warner Bros. Pulling them to over-monetize the game and introduce certain characters to promote their movies, it was a clash of personalities. They couldn't rectify what the actual player base wanted with what the company that was publishing them wanted. Which I guess leads us into the third major reason why this game failed, and it is just Warner Brothers. Over the course of this game's development, Warner Bros. Forced a bunch of decisions on this game that were not good for the player base. Characters that people were asking for, like Courage the Cowardly Dog, Godzilla, the Powerpuff Girls, which came much later than people wanted. Heck, this game is going to close down, and they've been teasing Dexter from Dexter's Lab for such a long time. He has a level, he has Easter eggs, and he's never even gonna make it to the game before it shuts down. And since I mentioned Godzilla, isn't it crazy that Godzilla got into Fortnite before he got into MultiVersus, while Warner Bros. Was directly working with Legendary Pictures on the films? And I think it just drives home the fact that MultiVersus was not a priority project for Warner Bros. When it comes to something like Fortnite, it's such a money driver, it's an enterprise all of its own. MultiVersus was just, at least by Warner Bros., looked at as a way for them to promote their properties so that maybe they could license them out to streaming services, maybe they could reboot them for sequel series. I mean, we did end up getting a Beetlejuice 2, they're looking at a Gremlins 3, and let's be real, they were pretty damn shameless when they brought in Black Adam to the game just to promote The Rock's failed movie. As much as I loved this game, and as much passion as there was for this game from the community and the developers, it was always just a way to promote the brand. And just today we had Warner Bros. Announce that they're gonna do way more crossovers and collabs with Fortnite once again. They kind of put these on pause back in Chapter 2 of that game because they were focused on their own projects like Suicide Squad, MultiVersus, and it just did not go their way. It cost them hundreds of millions of dollars into the hole, and at the end of the day, we can really only blame them because they fumbled this bag so hard. This should have been easy. I will admit that fighting games are more niche. No matter what you do, a fighting game was never going to hold as much population as a shooting game like Marvel Rivals. But there's no reason that MultiVersus couldn't have tens of thousands consistent players, and this really comes down to the fact that they did not provide enough content. Any content they put in the game was over monetized. They forced bad content just to satisfy the brand, and this caused a major identity crisis where they couldn't even decide the style of gameplay they wanted. They had the game work at a certain speed, they would create characters that moved outside of that speed or directly countered the way other characters played. When you get right down to it, playing MultiVersus just doesn't feel free. Where playing something like Marvel Rivals, you feel like the possibilities are endless, and really they are. The clip potential in a game like that is so intense because the interactions are flying all over the place. The chaos is insane, but the approachability for casual players is also very high. And when we're talking about fighting games in particular, I think MultiVersus did everything it possibly could to be unfriendly to the casual audience. Costume change, Sourheart from the future. I just wanted to talk about one more thing that kind of bugs me, and it's less about MultiVersus, but more when a live service game fails. You're going to be able to play MultiVersus offline even when they make it unavailable for download, but in my mind that's kind of the problem. The fact that there's no way to make this game player to player so that people can host their own lobbies and play with their friends with the internet, you know? Like, there's no reason you shouldn't be able to play modern games over the internet. The whole server-side hosting thing, that's a model that really hurts the player base, and it's kind of the way that developers want to go, but in the end, when they fail hard. That's why MultiVersus cost so much damn money to WB. That's ultimately why they're closing it down in the end, and I think it's just a damn shame that they're not back updating this game to be player versus player. I hope this is something that developers kind of key back in on in the future, because not every game can be Fortnite, Warzone, Roblox, you know. Not every game can maintain a player base to warrant continued developer interaction, but that doesn't mean they should just turn the servers off. and P2P solves this issue. Anyway, that's really all I want to talk about when it comes to the failure of MultiVersus. Comment down below. Were you playing MultiVersus? Did you enjoy the game? Maybe check out this video next to me about Marvel Rivals. It's the game I'm really focusing on right now, and I know a lot of you out there are playing it as well. I'm doing tips, tutorials, news, updates, pretty much everything I can think of in that game. I got some meme videos in the future as well, so be sure to subscribe, and I will catch you guys on the other side.